Some feelings don't start here. You weren't taught them. They didn't grow from experience. They arrived with you, already formed. You can't trace them back to a moment, but they show up anyway. In the way you connect to people you've never met. In the way certain places feel too familiar. In the way certain fears exist without reason. If that sounds like you, there's a name for it. And you're not imagining it. You're remembering. The idea that we live more than once isn't new. Across thousands of years in different cultures, there's been a quiet agreement that the soul continues, that life isn't a single event, but a sequence. Not as punishment or reward, but as experience. What you don't finish, what you carry deeply, what imprints on your spirit, it comes with you, and it leaves clues. This video isn't here to convince you. It's here to point out the signs you may have already noticed, and to explain why they don't quite fit inside this one lifetime alone. 1. You instantly know people you've never met. Sometimes you meet someone and your brain says stranger, but your body says again. There's no context, no memory, no reason, just a shift, a sense that this isn't new, that something already exists between you and them, even if you don't know what it is. It might show up as a sudden sense of ease or the opposite, a sharp discomfort with someone who hasn't done anything wrong. That reaction doesn't come from your logic. It comes from something older, a soul memory, recognition without explanation. These moments are more than intuition, they're reminders. You haven't just met this person, you've crossed paths in other lives. Not always with the same roles, not always kindly. But the connection is real, and your inner response knows it, even if your current mind doesn't. 2. You feel nostalgia for places you've never been. Some cities, landscapes, or buildings strike a nerve that's too specific to be random. You feel longing in places you've never visited. Sometimes you're flooded with emotion at a photograph, or a country you can't explain your attachment to. It's not fascination. It's memory disguised as curiosity. The place isn't foreign, it's familiar. You walk its streets in your mind before your feet ever touch them. And when you do arrive, something inside settles as if it finally made it back. This isn't fantasy, it's recall. You're not just looking at a place, you're remembering a version of yourself that once stood there, lived there, ended something there. That ache isn't imagination. It's a trace of presence recorded by the soul. 3. You learn certain skills unnaturally fast. Some people struggle for years to get the hang of a skill, but occasionally something just clicks. A language you never studied flows, a musical instrument feels like an extension of your hand, a craft you've never practiced feels second nature. It doesn't feel like you're learning. It feels like you're picking up where you left off. The mistakes others make never cross your mind. You skip steps without knowing you're skipping them. It's not arrogance, it's familiarity. When that happens, it's often a sign that you've done it before, not in this body, but in another life. Skills can leave marks on the soul, and when they resurface, they don't need to be taught. They just need to be remembered. 4. You carry deep fears that have no origin. Some fears are easy to understand. If you've been in a car crash, it makes sense to feel anxious behind the wheel. If you got trapped in a small space as a child, claustrophobia seems logical. But then there are fears that show up early, stay persistent, and have no clear beginning. They don't respond to reason, and they don't improve just because your life is safe. You might have a lifelong fear of fire without ever having seen a major blaze. You may panic in water even though you've never had a near-drowning experience. Some people can't tolerate the sight of knives or needles, despite never being harmed by them. Others feel faint in high places, even though they've never fallen. There are those who break into cold sweats in hospitals, despite never being injured or ill. These responses don't fit their biographies, but they do feel deeply familiar to their bodies. Researchers in fields like transpersonal psychology and regression therapy suggest that these kinds of fears could be linked to unprocessed trauma from previous incarnations. The idea is that the emotional imprint of a past life, especially one that ended suddenly or painfully, can carry forward into a new life through what some call cellular memory. You might not remember what happened, but your nervous system reacts as if it does, and that reaction becomes part of your emotional baseline, shaping how you move through the world in this life, even if the story behind it belongs to another. 5. You're drawn to specific cultures, time periods, or languages. It's common to feel curiosity about other places, But what sets this apart is the depth of your pull. It's not just interest, it feels like attachment. You may be inexplicably drawn to ancient Egypt, medieval France, feudal Japan, or indigenous American cultures, with a sense that something in those histories concerns you personally, even though you were never taught them in school or exposed to them through family. Some people feel an urge to learn a language they've never heard spoken in real life. Others feel comfortable wearing clothing from another time period, or experience comfort in architecture that has no link to their upbringing. A person might burst into tears hearing traditional music from a culture they've never visited, or feel a strange calm walking through ruins on a continent they only just arrived on. These reactions are emotional, not intellectual, and they often show up early, before any social or academic influence. The pull doesn't fade, even when life moves in other directions. In many spiritual traditions, this is seen as a form of soul memory, the echo of a past incarnation lived in that culture or under that flag, in a different body, under different skies. And sometimes it's more than memory, it's purpose. People who feel this pull often find themselves eventually drawn to serve, protect, or preserve elements of that culture, as if picking up work that once meant something to them, not because it was assigned, but because something inside recognizes it as familiar, unfinished, or simply theirs. 6. You've always felt older than everyone around you. Since childhood, you may have felt detached from what others found exciting or meaningful. You didn't relate to their concerns. You watched more than you participated. You questioned what others accepted. It didn't make you antisocial, just out of sync. This isn't a personality trait. It's a sign of spiritual age. You've carried through more lifetimes than those around you, and that depth shows up early. You understand patterns faster. You tire of superficial things. You speak less but feel more. People may have called you wise or said you had an old soul, but it goes deeper than that. You're not old in spirit because of personality. You're old in spirit because you've been here before, many times. 7. You feel like you're here to finish something. There's a sense of unfinished work that never really leaves you. Not ambition, not pressure. Something quieter, like you arrived in this life mid-sentence, as if you're continuing something that began long before your birth. It shows up as restlessness, a need to find meaning in your choices, a resistance to being ordinary. You might not know what it is you're meant to do, only that you're supposed to complete something, and until you do, you won't feel settled. This isn't fantasy, it's memory without context. The soul doesn't always get to finish what it starts, but it remembers, and when that purpose returns in another life, it brings that task with it, waiting to be recognized and resolved. 8. You dream in places that don't exist but feel like home. You might dream of cities with no names, landscapes that don't exist, or homes you've never lived in. But in those dreams, you know exactly where everything is. You feel safe. You remember faces you've never seen while awake. These aren't just dreams, they're fragments. Memories perhaps distorted by time and transition, but real nonetheless. The emotion is too specific to be random, and the familiarity is too strong to ignore. Your conscious mind may forget as soon as you wake up, but the trace remains, a longing, a recognition. That dream place wasn't invented. It was remembered by a part of you that still carries its coordinates. 9. You've had moments of déjà vu so intense they paralyzed you. Déjà vu isn't always a fleeting sensation. Sometimes it stops you in your tracks. You know what someone will say next. You feel the exact rhythm of a moment before it happens. It's not guessing, it's remembering something you have no memory of. Science tries to explain it as a brain glitch, but when it's strong enough, that explanation doesn't fit. These moments don't just feel familiar, they feel precise, like an exact replay, with emotional weight behind it. These are moments when your current timeline crosses a point your soul has touched before. Maybe in a different life, maybe under a different name, but the trace is there, and your body reacts, because deep down it knows. If you have made it this far, let us know what you think in the comment section below. For more interesting topics, make sure you watch the recommended video that you see on the screen right now. Thanks for watching.